Gerrit Cole hated Trevor Bauer before anyone else did. Before the 194-game suspension, before his polarizing social media presence, and way before his release from the Dodgers. Way before. On paper, there shouldn't have been beef between them. Both of these guys are incredibly successful MLB pitchers, with boatloads of money to show for it, to the tune of almost $500 million. They've won over 200 games combined, struck out nearly 3,500 batters, with each receiving a large amount of award consideration over the years as well. They were both elite starting pitching prospects from Southern California. They pitched on the same UCLA team for 3 years. By all accounts, both were extremely intelligent with extensive interests and passions outside of baseball. And hey, let's just toss in the fact that they were both in the forefront of the sticky stuff movement in the MLB as well. It truly is easy to forget how recent that was. So they should be friends, right? Or at least friendly? Nope, not at all. They've hated each other from basically the first moment they met. Sure, I can see where it would be easy to hate Trevor Bauer, and Gerrit Cole rubs some people the wrong way too, but this kind of hatred is special because it says a lot about the culture of baseball and the evolving state of the game in relation to social media. So let's dive in and explore the rivalry of Gerrit Cole and Trevor Bauer. Almost anyone who came into contact with Gerrit Cole as a kid isn't surprised at what he's become today. He was born to throw a baseball very hard, and his future was pretty much paved by the age of 8, when he began working with the pitching coach. He grew up in Orange County and went to Orange Lutheran High School, a private school that sends its students to some of the best colleges in the country. It's had its share of athletes, but none as decorated as Cole. By his sophomore year, Cole was touching the upper 80s with his fastball, mid-90s the next season, and then as a senior, he was recognized by some scouting services as the best prospect in the country. In one playoff game during his senior year, he hit 101 miles per hour. Dozens of scouts attended every game, but there was a catch. He was a UCLA commit, and one with a high asking price. He wasn't going to sign with an MLB team no matter what. Advising Cole at the time was the super agent Scott Boras, whose son played in the same high school league. As quaint as it might seem today, Cole's parents felt like their son needed college more than he needed minor league baseball at the time. He had to mature mentally. He wasn't going to add much more velo to 101 after all, but he was young. And at his high school, people went to college. Good colleges. After all, even can't-miss prospects can miss. The New York Yankees called their bluff and took him in the first round of the 2008 draft at number 28. They had 2 months to sign him, which would be hard since the Cole family was taking exactly 0 offers. There was talk of $4 million, but it wasn't official because Gerrit enrolled at UCLA and was working out with the team. The bright lights of professional baseball would have to wait. Was he concerned about walking away from a pile of cash? He didn't act like it, telling one senior that in 3 years he'd be drafted first overall and signed for $12 million. Still, as the deadline approached, no one on the UCLA campus knew if Cole would stay. He did. And then, true to his promise, he got drafted first overall in 2011 by the Pirates, signing for $8 million instead of that $12. Still a then record for a drafted pitcher. So he doubled his money in 3 years, got an education for free, and was set up for future stardom at the major league level. Meanwhile, in Santa Clarita, a town outside of LA that has very little in common with Orange County, another young pitcher was learning some valuable life lessons. Trevor Bauer was a junior on a powerhouse high school team led by future big league pitcher Mike Montgomery, and for Bauer, problems started right away. Since the age of 10, Trevor Bauer considered pitching to be a branch of science. His father was an engineer, and so the analytical side of things came naturally to Trevor. His competitive fire burned bright, but as a high school freshman, Bauer was maxing out at 78 miles per hour on his fastball. In the hotbed of SoCal youth baseball, this didn't get Bauer invites to the best travel ball teams or any real eyes from scouts. Bauer wondered, why couldn't I throw harder? Did the science of engineering have an answer to this problem, where pitching coaches looking at the idea of how to throw high-velocity pitches just plain wrong? It turns out a camp in Texas was promising to add speed to any pitcher's fastball. Bauer journeyed to the Texas Baseball Ranch to work with Ron Wolforth, who taught him an unorthodox training regimen that featured weighted balls and long toss. Bauer went there for the next several summers and stuck to the training with the zealotry of a religious convert. When he joined varsity at Hart High School as a 15-year-old, Bauer was entering a lion's den of baseball excellence. The team was so good that it would send 6 players to the big leagues. It was also a team on which Trevor Bauer had trouble fitting in. He was brash, outspoken, and dedicated to his unique training methods. And in high school, with the jocks crowd, that could get a nerdy kid, somewhat lacking in size and stature, in trouble. Montgomery admits that the upperclassmen got on Bauer, who didn't back down 1 inch. Bauer even told Montgomery that he'd strike out more batters than him, which he proceeded to do during the 1 season they played together. Then Bauer did something that prep football scouts do routinely. He graduated high school a semester early and matriculated to the college he'd signed with, UCLA, thereby skipping his senior season at heart. But even on his official visit to the UCLA campus, Bauer created some controversy by wearing a Duke hat. By graduating early and going to college, Bauer had also given up any chance of being drafted out of high school. But with his stellar 4.8 GPA, Bauer was set to study mechanical engineering and apply those principles to pitching. The draft would have to wait. In Bauer's case, joining the UCLA Bruins must have felt a lot like being on the team at Hart High School all over again. Let's start with the timing. Cole had arrived with the other freshmen in August and had been working out with the team, building bonds before Trevor even stepped on campus. Cole had established himself as a team leader and would be the Friday night starter, the role of the top dog in the world of college baseball. Bauer didn't join the team until January 2009, when he was still just 17. He was incredibly green and still very outspoken on his thoughts of revolutionizing baseball. Fitting into a college locker room full of young men who conducted themselves as more or less professionals was a skill that Bauer had yet to master. Bauer and Cole butted heads almost immediately. The issue once again was Bauer's aloofness from the culture of the team. In the weight room, Cole ripped Bauer for not being there with the guys, suffering through the grind, because Bauer put more emphasis on flexibility in his throwing program. The head coach had allowed Bauer to work out on his own as long as he was pitching well, and this just didn't sit right with Gerrit. Why was he special? He wasn't even the Friday night starter after all. Why could he change the standards for the team, or at least ignore them? Thus was put in motion a 3-year duel between the two best pitchers in college baseball. It was also a duel between two different philosophies, Cole representing the old school, muscle-bound, throw, and throw some more approach, while Bauer was using newly minted terms like tunneling and spin axis, and hurling a weird shoulder tube in the outfield, and playing long toss upwards of 300 feet before games. Cole allegedly said that Bauer had no future in the game, and Bauer took that very personally. Every moment was a chance for the two of them to battle it out, to see who was going to soak up the spotlight and bring UCLA to the promised land. The two stars would literally race each other at full speed to go chase foul balls during Bruins games. Come on! They pushed each other to get better, and they did, dominating college baseball like no other rotation mates have in recent memory. Bauer had better career numbers in college than Cole, with a 34-8 record and a 2.36 ERA, in comparison to Cole's 21-20 record with a 3.38 ERA. Bauer also threw more complete games, 15-5. Together, they took the Bruins to the College World Series in 2010, and they were in good shape to win it all, with Cole starting in a best 2 out of 3 against Southern Carolina. But Cole got knocked around by the Gamecocks, and in the second game, because he'd thrown 135 pitches 2 days before, Bauer couldn't start. Whit Merrifield walked the Bruins right off the field. Despite having Cole and Bauer returning in 2011, the Bruins didn't get back to Omaha. The hostilities between them remained and festered over this period. Cole would refer to Bauer as a mixer and a thumber, in contrast to his own classic power pitcher style. Cole was a vocal leader, while Bauer was more cerebral and preferred to pull teammates aside for private talks. Another huge difference in how these two approached life was how they viewed relationships with women. While at UCLA, Gerrit Cole found a life partner and future wife Amy Crawford, who played softball and, fun fact, whose brother is Giants shortstop Brandon Crawford. Trevor Bauer didn't find a life partner. He had no interest. Baseball was his mistress, at least for now. For all of their college accomplishments, there was zero doubt who was going number 1 in the 2011 draft. Gerrit Cole was the man, and the Pirates snagged him. Bauer went third to Arizona. Even in a now professional setting, old patterns returned for Bauer. Just like UCLA was not really a reprieve from Hart High School, the Diamondbacks didn't allow Bauer a chance to reset and make connections to his new team. He was, again, treated as an outsider. Trouble started almost immediately, brought on by the training regimen that Bauer had been using for years. The D-backs brass didn't think Bauer was receptive to making any changes, and then, when he did complete his quick march up to the bigs, he alienated himself from catcher Miguel Montero quickly by shaking off almost every pitch that Montero called for. Bauer was nicknamed Bobblehead for this tendency. He was quickly dealt to the Indians. Neither Cole nor Bauer pitched like truly elite starters consistently in their early years, with Cole's standout 2015 being the only real season of note between them. The Pirates traded Cole in 2018, in their usual buffoonish way, giving up a lot and getting little in return from the Astros. It would be in this year that everything would change for both pitchers. Cole's numbers, a 1.44 ERA+, 276 Ks, a 2.88 ERA, all for the playoff-bound Astros. As for Bauer, his numbers were actually a bit more impressive on a rate basis than Cole's, a ridiculous 196 ERA+, a K percentage of nearly 31%, and an ERA of 2.21. He even led the AL in FIP at 2.44. Both haven't looked back since, winning Cy Youngs, putting up 300 strikeout seasons, and making the playoffs in multiple years, as well as inking their big deals. That is to say, before Bauer's suspension, which threw a wrench in their entire co-trajectory. But back to their animosity. Apparently, after their college career ended, there was no settling of scores, and bygones never really became bygones. In 2016, when getting ready to face the Cubs in the World Series, a reporter asked Bauer if he'd reached out to Cole for insight into the National League foe, since Cole had faced the Cubs many times. Bauer was succinct: "I've only spoken to him once since college." So, no. A head scratcher for many. Why would these guys be at least friendly at this point? I mean, at least enough to not elicit a curt response when asked an interview question. Had these two men not grown up enough to settle a public beef, full well knowing it could create a semi-media fiasco? Apparently not, and for his part, Bauer kept piling on. The feud reached a fever pitch of sorts when the two met head-to-head for the first time as professionals in 2018. Cole was with the Astros and off to a hot start, sitting at a 5-1 record with a 1.86 ERA, and Bauer was throwing BBs too, at 4-3 with a 2.35 ERA. A few weeks before the matchup, Bauer went on Twitter and basically threw shade at the Astros pitchers, accusing them of cheating by using sticky substances to increase spin rate. While he didn't name Cole specifically, the implication was obvious. Baseball wasn't enforcing its rules, and the Astros and Cole were benefiting disproportionately. The timing was curious, to say the least. Cole had no response, as he's sent one tweet in his entire life. Again, that's another big difference between the two. Bauer has a controversial past when it comes to online trolling, including multiple harassment accusations. As we said, Cole barely even has an account. This was also around the time Bauer had started his own media company, Momentum, which, to his credit, mostly treats him as a featured host/guest versus an owner, which serves to enhance the viewer experience, in my opinion. The brand is very successful and has been credited by more than a few as being a chief example on how to revolutionize baseball perception. However, it's not hard to see that this too could create another obstacle in the way of reconciliation. Gerrit is fiercely private and wouldn't likely be open to discussing anything publicly. But anyway, back to that 2018 contest. Bauer did try to tamp down the flames in the days before the game, issuing a statement in which he said, "I'd love nothing more than to trade Cy Youngs with him for the next 10 years, because it's good for everybody involved." So I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he seems to be healthy this year. When Bauer was a free agent after the 2020 season, he again insisted that there's nothing wrong with Gerrit, though at the time he was fielding attention from the Yankees, so it's unknown if that was a media ploy to make NY seem realistic or not. Most deafening of all was the silence from Cole, who said nothing every step of the way, including before that start. They're truly two different people, handling things massively different. All we know for sure is that things, at least to our knowledge, haven't been worked out between them since. As for that 2018 game, the Indians would go on to win 10-9, with neither Bauer nor Cole having a particularly good start. The sticky substance issue that Bauer raised in 2018 would come back in 2021. In fact, Bauer had thrust himself into the thick of it, and Cole would be dragged through the mud before it was over as well. When Bauer had dissed the Astros in 2018, he tweeted something about, quote, raising his spin rate by 400 RPM if he could only think of a way. Lol. Then he went out and did just that over the next 2 years, seemingly in retaliation of MLB's laissez-faire approach. However, Bauer would be Bauer if he didn't go above and beyond. Allegedly, he had developed his own proprietary mixture, which had been an interesting selling point in the offseason of 2020 when he became a free agent by winning the Cy Young with his inflated spin rate. No one knows how much the Dodgers' motivation to sign him had to do with this mixture, but whatever he'd been working on came crashing down when Bubba Harkins sued MLB for doctoring baseballs and started naming names. As an ex-clubhouse attendant with the Angels, he alleged to have procured sticky substances for stars like Gerrit, Cole, and others, and he had the texts to prove it. The owners voted to begin a crackdown, and lo and behold, spin rates started dropping like flies around MLB. Two pitchers in particular stood out, our titular characters, Gerrit Cole and Trevor Bauer. Cole's spin rate dropped about 6%, a huge number in the baseball world of inches. In a start against the Rays shortly after the ban, he got shelled for 5 runs in 5 innings. Josh Donaldson infamously wondered aloud if it was a quote coincidence or not. Bauer saw a 10% drop in spin rate before the ban took effect, and while Cole stayed silent, Bauer all but admitted to using sticky substances beforehand. I mean, he was selling merch with legalized pine tar on his website, and when asked if he could pitch as well without pine tar, Bauer said, "Look at my 2018 numbers." Translation, he could pitch well without it, but he felt it was necessary in the current environment if he really wanted to be able to compete with someone like Cole, or the hundreds of other hurlers who were actively taking part. Nevertheless, both were forced to stop the usage of whatever substance they were employing in 2021. I don't want to get into much detail on Bauer's 194-game suspension. It's over now, and he's currently eligible to sign with an MLB team. Do I think this makes him less likely to ever throw an MLB pitch, let alone work out a beef with another player? I do. It's hard right now to imagine a club taking a flyer on someone who has such a controversy behind them, let alone the other clubhouse issues he's had in the past. Gerrit likely wouldn't touch a conversation with him with a 10-foot pole. The Dodgers, who released Bauer, will be paying his full salary, meaning he's essentially free. Bauer is all but sitting in the discount bin, and there are, as of yet, no takers. There isn't an MLB team who wouldn't get better on the field by adding him for the MLB minimum. However, there's more to baseball than simply what happens on the field. Gerrit Cole lives in a mansion in Connecticut, signed to a team constantly in playoff contention for years to come. He plays piano and guitar and is raising 2 sons with a woman he's known since UCLA. They blog about food. She posts pictures of their children regularly. The divide, after all these years, couldn't be deeper than it currently is between the 2 stars. 2 men, the same sport, the same position, the same college, and 2 very different personalities. No one knows what the future holds for either, but one thing I'm sure of is that they won't be sharing another locker room again in their careers. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and make sure to check out this playlist for more content just like this. Have a great day, everyone.